So in the last module, Module 2, we went through how to calculate, how to think about measures of health status for a population, right? So morbidity, mortality, natality, those are all things that give us a good indication on the health of a population. Now, as we move into this module, we'll start to talk about what are some of those determinants of health that determine the health of a population. So things like employment status, educational attainment, household income, and then we can further break that down by sex, by age cohort, and other demographic information that's going to give us a better picture of how certain factors in certain groups, certain cohorts of the population, how that all comes together to determine the health of that population and what type of health services they'll need. So the great place to go to get all of this kind of determinants of health data is going to be the census. And I find that most people haven't had a chance to really go through and get census data unless you've had to do some sort of analysis for your organization or do a research project. So it's something to get acquainted with, and I would play around with it if you can to try to find some metrics or statistics that will be interesting for you, given whatever it is that you do in your organization. So to get the data, just go to census.gov. And I'm going to walk this through you here. We'll download a data file, and hopefully that'll help you as you start to think about how you can not only be looking at determinants of health and looking at population data for the final project, but also, again, certain things that might be interesting for you as you try to think about the population that you serve. So we'll go here to data, data main, and we're going to go to American Fact Finder. This is the place where we've got all of the data. So, and I believe that we did link to this in MBA 600. You can go in and get community facts. So this is just high-level information regarding a population. So you can go in and put in state or county level information or in the search box here and go and get some high-level information. But if we're actually going to be using this to try to analyze and improve and think about how we deliver services, we're going to need very detailed raw data. So we're going to go down here to the download center. And once we're here, so there's two options. There's an option for prepackaged data. We don't want that. We actually want to go in and we want to look at all of the different data files that are available, and we want to try to look at them just for our specific county. So we'll say, I know the data set or tables that I want to download. That'll give us the opportunity to go through and look at all of them. So the program in the census data that we'll be using is the American Community Survey. And we're going to use the 5-year estimates. What's really interesting is that at a county level, certain counties will capture certain variables every single year, whereas other counties, they only go through and do some of the data collection on some of the more obscure variables every 5 years or so. So if we want to get a more broad, inclusive picture of all of the variables, all of those determinants of health across all counties in New York State, we're going to go ahead and do the 5-year estimates. That's going to give us more data to work with. So we'll add that selection. It'll come over here. We'll hit next. Then it's asking us to select a geographic area for our analysis. Now we can do this at a national level, at a regional level. We can look at different states. We're going to go through and let's do a county level analysis. And we're going to do this for New York State. So we'll say all counties within New York, add to our selections. And then we'll hit next. And this is where we get all of this information. Now, if you can see the search results here up at the top, there's 25 pages and over 1,000 different tables that we can use that break down different variables by county within New York State. There is just an enormous amount of information here. So some of the basic ones are on the first few pages, things like age and sex, population breakdown, selected characteristics, demographic data based on race, ethnicity, and you can see here means of transportation to work. There are several pages that are dedicated to how people get to work, the time it takes for them to get to their jobs. We've got information about grandparents, households, marital status, school enrollment, educational attainment. I mean, it goes into so much detail. So if we're thinking about doing some analysis and we want to understand how maybe, let's say, marital status influences a particular use of a health service in our area, then we would want to get that. Let's go through and select marital status, and we'll go up here and hit next. and it'll say we do want to include the descriptive data element name, so we'll hit OK, and then the download will start. Depending on how many files you select, it can take a really long time, but this one was pretty short and sweet, so we'll download it. Because I have a Mac, I don't have up-to-date WinZip, so I'm just going to go to my downloads, and I'm going to open it with my archive utility, and let me just switch over the screen so hopefully you can see this. So now I want to show you this. Okay, so this is what we're doing. So I've downloaded the information, I've unzipped it. I'm going to go into this download folder, and here it is all, it comes out in .csv files. So there's always two, there's the metadata, and we're going to go through, and we want the with annotation. So that's going to give us the headers that are going to be helpful as we start to understand this data. Let me switch over my screen share so you can see this file. Okay, here we go. So this is our file. Again, we looked at marital status, and we are looking at all of the counties in New York State. So we should have 64 counties listed here in New York State. And then we've got all of our data over here. So this is the population 15 years and over, right? So that's going to be the population that feasibly could be married. So we've got a margin of error too. And so we've got the first pass here is the total number, or the total percent that are now married out of that population. And here's our margin of error. We've got widowed, we've got divorced, right? So if we're looking maybe at family counseling or something like that, right, this kind of information would give us an indication of the numbers that we're seeing in our county. If you're a provider of services in the county, though, you're probably going to want to look at it at a more granular level, so probably looking at zip code. So if we go back to that, to the census download finder and looking at that American Community Survey, when we pick that geographic area, you could actually scroll down a little bit further and you could pick 5-digit zip. So that's going to do the same breakdown, and you could probably do this. You can then pick for your county in New York State, looking at it by 5-digit zip, you can get the same sort of breakdown. So again, this is a great opportunity for you to just go in, check out the data that's there. Hopefully that'll give you some ideas for ways to think about the data for the final presentation, but also hopefully as you think about caring for your population and trying to improve the health status of your population, this is also a great way to look through and really understand those determinants of health for the people that you serve.